So the first thing I'm gonna show you will be, I'm gonna just move this a little bit. So here you have tons of information, right? So here you have your collection and here your description. For now I have just one, but if I create different collections, I can see them here and I can change to one to the other one, and same for the description. Here you have the file, so you can import collection or description if you have exported anything. Export your collection. Export patches for batch render. So we are going to do this when we are going to render our stuff in batch render. This is very important. So it's basically just baking your informations to a file, and it's using this file to, it's reading this file when it's doing the batch render to render your hair basically. Export as archive and batch converter. We don't really need this. Here it's something very important when you start to fix your stuff. I'm gonna show it to you. So it's called the edit file path, and basically it's just showing you where the project is. So it's the project name. That's why I told you to set your project, right? And if you go, so you have the project name, then Xgen, then collection, then head. So with those information, you will be able to know if your Xgen file is at the right place. It can happen sometimes that you're moving your file to another computer or whatever, you know, and your Xgen file is like, hey, where are your maps, you know, I don't understand. And you need to open this edit file path here to know which path it's reading. And if it's wrong, you can change it, you know. So be careful with this. It really can like save your life. Fixed patch names also is basically just editing the file path and trying to find the right names. Delete collection, okay. Here you can create another description. For example, I'm just like selecting the beard and I can like create a description. And now I'm gonna call it beard. And so it's gonna just create a new description. Duplicate, move, select. Bind patch is basically, I'm gonna show you here. So if you zoom in here, you can see that now my hair scalp has some cross, pinky cross, you know, purple or pinky. And those cross means that there is a hair which is attached to my scalp. And if I select the hair here, you can see that it's exactly here, sorry. It's exactly here, right? So by this you can choose to add faces, replace faces, remove faces, and you don't need this. So for example, if I would like, I could just like remove those faces. So if you just go here and you remove the selected faces, and it's just gonna remove those faces from the hair. I'm gonna do it, remove selected faces. As you can see now, my hair is just going to be there, you know, and not on those ones. I'm just gonna put them back, right? Be careful sometimes with the, okay, so now they're back. Be careful with some Control Z that might be sometimes for that kind of manipulation, just creating some bugs. So just like reselect your faces and you can redo the add selected faces. Replace will basically be like, I already have this scalp and I want to create a new scalp, you know, I'm just gonna replace those faces. Maybe useful sometimes, honestly. We don't need this for now. Stray, we don't need this also, but it's for flyaways. Delete, okay. I'm gonna show you this later too. The logs are important, so basically your logs will be here, and they're gonna show you exactly what happened with your file. So I guess when you just start Maya, you have maybe just the warning level and the statistic level, which are turned to 2. You can go to 5 or whatever. Be careful. The more information you have here, the more slower will be the file will be. So every time you will, like for example, preview your fur, if you have the warning level at 5, it's just gonna show you everything, right? So you will preview it, and while it's previewing, it's gonna show you, hey, you have an error here, you have a warning here, or whatever. So it can be very slow. I guess 2 and 2 here are great, and if you start having bugs, you can go to 3 or 4. I guess I've never needed to go to 5. It's more something for like the TDs or the people who really are working deep inside Xgen. Debug is the same, you can change the level. And here you have some quick helps. Now I'm just gonna turn this like this. Now you have the same kind of icons that you have here. So this one is basically just to preview the fur. This one is to disable the preview or clear the Xgen preview. As you can see, there is a little arrow here that you can go here and choose to update the preview automatically. I'm gonna show you the difference when it's on or off a bit later. Preview the current description only, all the description, all the collections might be interesting too, and preview the selected object only. And it can, by object they also mean faces, so if you just select those faces and turn this on, it's gonna just preview the fur for those faces. Interesting, right? Same here, you can clear all the collection, all the description, or just the selected faces. This is just to create a new description. You can find it here too, and I guess here too. Yeah, create new description. So there is always many ways to do the same thing. This is not very interesting for you for now. This is probably the most interesting stuff. So it's to add guides. I'm just gonna show you. I just have added a guide, you know. I'm gonna add a few of them just to show you the preview, and now I have fur. So I have guides here that I can select, and I have my hair here. This one is to show or hide the guides. This one is to lock the guides, so I basically cannot select them. This one is gonna just mirror the guide, right? So you will just mirror the guides. And you don't need those ones for now. This one is basically just to select the hair, you know, and then you can like hide them or whatever, but this is not very interesting for you for now, so don't really take consideration of this. So the most important thing will be like your guides, and you basically can do whatever you want with the guides, which means you can scale them, right? You can rotate them, you can Control Z if you want, and you can do also that kind of stuff. Okay, and basically every time you will preview the fur, it's gonna follow the guides. So this is the maybe the most important part, because it's all about guides. So you have your guides here, and if you go to your channel box, you will also see that you have informations. So UV, face ID, and here a blend, a taper. So the taper is basically just like, if I go to 0.9, it's just the shape of the guide. Not very important, I guess. I like to keep it to the default position, you know. And the width is maybe very important too, because it's just giving you the width of your guide. And as Xgen is based on a different unit than the Maya unit, the basic Maya unit, you can find that most of the time, every time you create a guide, it looks too thick. So just come to the width, change it, and put like 0.01, right? And now you have something which is more interesting for you. I'm gonna go back to 0.1 just for you to show it, to see it better. So that being said, we've seen all those information here, all of them here, all of them here, and we are going to start talking about those weird tabs, right? So the first one will be primitives, and it's the generator attributes. So it's just exactly when we have created the description here, you were able to use in uniform rows at specified points, blah blah. And you can find the kind of same stuff here in the uniform rows and columns. You can change it, you know, here at specified guide location. You know, you can choose at guide location, for example, so you have one hair per guide, blah blah blah, from XPD file. So we'll keep randomly across the surface. This is just the seed. This is the density that you can increase. I told you a bit earlier that this was updated automatically. If I turn this off, I can change the density. It's not changing anything. I have to re-preview it. But if I go back to update, as you can see, it's just updating in real time. It's sometimes very interesting, but when your fur is coming to have like a lot of density, it might be too slow to work with this, but it's up to you, your machine, and the project that you're working on. So this is the density dash mask map. So here you have the density, and you can basically just recreate a map inside this. How maps are working here. So you basically do not have any maps for now. You just have a path, and here you have this little icon. If you open it, it's gonna open like the Xgen expression editor. So this is like the expression editor of Xgen, which is a language called C expression, which is also a Disney property language, I guess. I don't know if they sold it or whatever, but it's basically Disney who like developed it, I guess, if I remember well. So you will be able to, we are going to talk about this later too, when I'm going to show you some expressions. But this is the map, and here on this little arrow you will have the create map, save expression, the expression resident to slider. And if you choose to create a map here, it's gonna open you this, and here you have the map name, sorry, and the map resolution. And as we told previously, it's a ptext map, so it's not like I want a 2K. You will never put like 2K into your map. It's basically the resolution of each faces. So what I mean is, like, most of the time you will not go over 250, because the bigger the map is, in resolution, I mean, the bigger also in terms of megabyte or whatever it is. So it's also the size in your folders. Be careful to not be having like too much resolution, because it can slow down the whole process. And then you can choose here whatever you want to create your map. Here in the primitive attributes, you have spline, archive, card, sphere. Same as when we've created the collection, we could have choose this. We're gonna stick with spline. You can test the other one. Here we are control using attributes or guides. We are using guides. We also set up this when we've created the description. If you are using attributes here, it's just gonna like give you a bunch of attributes, and you can like paint different maps for each attribute. We will probably use this when we are doing the animal, so no worries. Here it's just the CV count of the hair. So basically, if I move this to like 15 like I said, sorry. So it's just like increasing the number of CVs per strands. Here it's the length. So 1 means the length of the guide, basically. I really advise you to not go more than 1, because if you do, you will have hair which are longer than the guides. And for the other departments, such as the technical animation department, as they are simulating the hair, if you are the guide, sorry, if your hair is going here, for example, and your guide is going here, you're gonna sim it. You're gonna sim the guide, but your hair is twice longer than your guide, so that makes no sense to sim the guide. So try to stick with 1 maximum here. The width is basically just like the width of the hair, and you have like a ramp, so you can do whatever you want. Taper, I'm gonna go back to something like this, yeah. So the taper start, I'm gonna put it like this, and it's exactly the same as for the guides. So it's taping your hair basically. So depending on what you want, you have to use it. The tilt is basically just like tilting the hair. I'm not using this a lot, to be honest with you, the tilt and the run. But I don't know, maybe in some case that might be interesting. Display with face camera and tube shed. So it's all about the preview. A rebuild will be to change the number of CVs of your guide. So basically same, if I put like 9 here, you will see that my guide will have a way more control points. Tube groom, you don't need it. Normalize, sorry, I forgot to. So basically if I like move this one here, move this one here, and now I'm using the normalize, you will try to, well, you didn't did it really well on this one, but you will try to just like, yeah, now it's done. You will try to normalize the curves and to create like a good distribution of the CVs along the curve. Honestly, I'm using this a lot, so just like normalizing my guide every time I'm doing something. And the set length is basically just to give the length of your guide. So for example, I'm taking this one, I'm choosing like 5, and it's gonna give a length of 5 to my guide. The region control is basically to create region maps. So if, for example, you have, I'm gonna just draw something quickly just to show you. So if you have, for example, going like this, and other one going like this, but we are going to do it with my haircut, and you want those one to be like very straight, the separation to be very straight, like a hard line here, you know, with no fur, you will need to use what we called a region map, which is basically telling to your hair, hey, you take those one here, from here to here, and they're going to follow those guides, and you take those one here, and they're going to follow here. Very interesting, very important. We are going to come back to this later. Guide animation is more for the technical animation part. So it's basically you have your guides, you choose to use them as animation. So every time you will do the tick anim, it's gonna use your guides. Displacement is not working very well, but it's basically if you have the like a ground or whatever with like a big displacement and you want your fur to follow this displacement if it's not modeled, so you can use a map here. But honestly it's not working very well, so I advise you every time you have like a very big modification of geo to do it into your geo and not into a map, a displacement map. Enable culling, well, you're going to see this right now. That's important for you, and I guess you have already a lot to discover through this. We are going to go a bit quicker now because that can be boring, but I guess that's very important to know all the buttons, so we will not have to come back to them later. This basically is the percentage of the display, only the display. Only primitives in the view means like if I'm here and I'm previewing this part will not be previewed. Now it is. If I remove this, I can go here, preview my fur, everything will be previewed. You don't need this for now. The primitive colors is basically the color that you give to your hair on the display, and the guide color is saying like the color of your guides. Render output settings here, if you're using Arnold, choose Arnold for example, and you can choose to create geometry, create guides, mail file, create point file, XPD, whatever you want. So here for example, if you want to convert all your hair to a geometry, you will use this. If you want to like convert those hair to guides, you will use this, blah blah blah. Not very important for now, just remember that this is here. Yeah, primitive shaders and surface shader parameters, those will be for mostly compositing and other departments. We're not really using this a lot. We are mostly using the custom shader parameters here. So it's gonna, here you will create your color maps, for example. Like I want like a texture map, so you are going to create an attribute that you will call inside your shader. Say I'm going to talk about this later. This is not important, not important, not important. The modifiers is maybe one of the most important thing also with the guides. So it's basically just like all the modifiers that you can apply to your fur or hair. So it can be clamps, it can be noise, it can be a cut, it can be a couple of stuff. It can also be related to the CFX, so it can be forces and wind and animals, but you can also bake your groom from here. You can do a couple of stuff from the modifiers, and this is definitely an interesting part. I'm just gonna show you quickly the one that we are going to use the most. So we basically will be using probably the clamp, the coil, the noise, the cut, and that's pretty much it. And you may have to use the mesh cut. The mesh cut is basically if you have, I don't know, like a hat for example on the head, you can use the mesh cut. You give the hat to the mesh cut and it's gonna like cut the hair everywhere your hat is. So to avoid the collision you will be using that kind of stuff. Just gonna show you quickly the different no, let's do this later. Grooming is basically every time you choose to create your description here using the groomable splines, you will have here different parameters that you do not have because you're not using this method right now, but same will be later. Utilities here is all the utilities, so basically convert guides to curve, create a lattice for the guides, you know, like you can create the lattice and move your guides and blah blah. You can also do a guide check, which is, I'm mostly using guide to curve. I'm using curve to guide, sorry, guide to guide as curves, and guide to curves, guide check, and that's pretty much it I'm using here. The guide check is basically taking all your guides and taking a look at, hey, do you have any zero length guide, do you have identical guides, everything. So it's helping you to correct your groom if you need to do something into your groom, right? Interesting too. And here you have the expressions. So you basically can like set up an expression and save it and recall this expression inside all your other stuff. So if I name it like, for example, Jordan, here I can use this name inside my modifiers to say, hey, I want to use the expression called Jordan, you know. And now you have it. You can choose whatever you want with this expression, and this expression will be like a float called Jordan, and you can create a color, vector, point, or no matter. Same, we will talk about the expression a bit later. That's too soon for now. Just gonna remove it, and I'm gonna show you the modifiers. So the modifiers, I'm just gonna show you the one that we will probably be using the most. So the clumping will be the first one. I'm gonna like, you know what, I'm just gonna, sorry, delete all the guides and recreate like 3 of them. Let's do 4. Increase the size of them, retrieve my fur. Perfect. Beautiful. So now I have a clamp. I'm also gonna change the color because we definitely don't see anything, right? Also, I guess I can go back to, yeah, that's better for this. One important thing before I forget, you can go to the viewport 2.0 and you can choose to increase the anti-aliasing to 16, and it's gonna give you a way better anti-aliasing of your hair, which is important. So we were talking about the modifiers. So the clamp modifier is probably the most important one. When we are going to do the haircut, I'm gonna talk deeper to the clamp modifier. So just like an overview of how it works. So you basically have the shape of your clamp, and you have different parameters here, such as curl or a noise inside the clamp. And here you can set up your clamp, export your clamp, and preview your clamp basically. So I'm just gonna set up something quickly with you. So if you set up it, you will see this generation of clamping, right? If I click generate, it's giving me this yellow line here, which means everywhere I have a yellow line, I will have all the fur around this connecting to that point, and this is gonna create a clamp. If I increase the density here, I can generate way more of them, but I will stick with one. This is just about the length of the display. Not very important. Those are more like deeper understanding. And this is a mask, so you basically can paint a mask or use an expression to be like, hey, I don't want any clamp here, so let's remove the yellow guys here. And I'm gonna just save this just to show you. And now I've basically created my first clamps. So if I preview the guide, I can see that at all these points here, I will have a clamp, right? So just to talk a little bit about the effects. So you can change the shape. As I told you, you can like do whatever you want with your clamp. Interesting or not. Not gonna go into detail. You can like this mask is going to affect your clamps. So basically here the modifier is set to 0, here to 1. Gonna talk about this one, so you can like add a kind of noise inside the clamp to create that kind of effect. So it's basically creating a noise per clamp. So for each big clamp you have a noise applied. And yeah, you have also the curl and everything. You can see this by yourself, I guess. And here you have the color preview, which is basically giving one color per clamp, which is very important, very useful, and thanks Xgen to have this. The second one that we're going to see will be, I'm just gonna turn this, the cut. The cut is basically, just gonna open my clamps a little bit. Oops. Yeah. So you can see what the cut is doing. It's basically cutting the end of your hair like this. So basically when you create it, it has like an expression called like a random expression saying let's cut between 0 and 0.7, right? So it's exactly what it's doing. Useful, same, going to talk about it later. And the other one that we're going to use like a lot will be the noise, which is this one. And it's kind of the same as the noise inside the clamp, but it's affecting each hair individually. It's not affecting one clamp, but it's affecting each hair. So basically if I put like a frequency of 5, each of them will have like a different frequency. But yeah, just bear in mind that this is existing, and the 3-1 are the most useful modifiers that we are going to use. All the other ones are kind of fancy for grooming and not as important as the 3 here. So I think we did like a quick overview of everything in Xgen, all the effects and everything. Once again, every time we are going to talk of something important when we are doing the haircut, so it might be the clamping, the noise, or the cut, I'm gonna go deeper into this. I'm gonna give you more information about all of them and how to use them, but I wanted to like do a first pass of what all those folders, you know, what can we do with all of the stuff, because I know that sometimes people get just lost with all those informations. So now you have like, I guess, just a basic understanding of everything, and you will be able to understand what I'm going to do during the next courses, right? So yeah, I'm just confirming that everything is, we've talked about everything, but I guess so. Yeah. So that's great. I think that's really great that now you have a good understanding of everything.